Hello, and welcome back to another episode of English Digest. I'm Seb.
I'm Elsie.
Today's assignment is an interesting one. It's the kind of topic that we might talk about occasionally with our local and foreign friends, but not one that we go into too much detail on. Let's take a closer look. Elsie, can you tell us a bit more about the assignment?
Sure. 身为台湾的一份子，你最想改变台湾的什么事情呢？请写一篇至少120个单词的英文作文，谈谈台湾最让你无法忍受或造成你困扰的面向或事物，例如人、事物、文化、制度等等都可以。第一段呢，描述一个面向或事物，并说明它为什么让你无法忍受。第二段要说明你认为政府可以做哪些改变，或是你如何从自身做起，让台湾变得更美好。
So, Elsie, what is one thing that troubles you or worries you about Taiwan?
Like house prices in Taiwan?
That's a very good one.
Yeah, especially in Taipei. They keep rising, but our salaries remain low.
Yes, it's worrying. There might be a housing bubble. So what improvements what about improvements that Taiwan has already achieved? Do you think life is better here now than when you were a kid?
Yes, of course. For example, when I was little, there was no MRT or high-speed rail. Can you imagine?
It must have been so hard to get around.
Yeah, now it's really easy and convenient to get around in Taiwan.
Yes, of course it is. You can get across the island in, 2 hours to Kaohsiung from
2
Taipei?
hours, yes.
Very, very quick. Okay, so this is a pretty useful exercise to tackle this month. Looking at the prompt, it seems that we're going to be writing an essay for our passage. An essay, to recap, is a piece of writing that analyzes a subject from a particular point of view. Essays are normally detailed and include personal opinions or reflections. You'll definitely be writing a lot of them in college because essays are very common in the academic world. Now, I want to make a quick distinction between essays and another kind of writing that you'll see a lot and you'll have to do for your English exams too. Essays are different from reports. Now, reporting is a style of writing where you write facts, what people have said, what data shows, statistics, just general stuff. You don't add your own opinions, though. In essays, normally you have to expand upon what you found out, maybe give opinions, or maybe evaluate other people's opinions and say, this is a good opinion or a bad opinion. So that's a key difference between essays and reports.
Essay 跟 report 不一样的地方是在 report 报告当中，我们只能放上客观的事实。不过在 essay 当中我们要加入自己主观的意见。那我们今天要写的是叙述论说文。什么是叙述论说文呢？指的是一篇文章当中涵盖叙述跟论说两种文体，也出现在近期的学测作文当中哦。例如呢，105年的，你认为家里生活环境的维持应该是谁的责任？还有108年的，身为台湾的一份子，台湾最让你感到骄傲的是什么？第一个部分叙述某个现象、经验或事件，第二个部分再针对主题加以论说，并做出结论。而此两部分的顺序也可以对调。
So how is an essay different to, say, a movie or book review or an opinion article in the news? Both of these styles include the writer's opinion after all. For one, essays are normally more formally written pieces of writing than something you see in a newspaper or on a blog. They offer opinions, but these are informed opinions you have reached because you have done lots of research. And that's why essays include lots of sources as well. If you're going to do informed opinions, then you need lots of sources, 资讯来源. So, though you won't have to do one for this assignment, you won't have to include sources for your English exams. After all, it's only 120 words long. When you get into college, you'll need to include a lot of sources that explain your opinions. Structure is another important part of essays, right, Elsie?
没错，架构非常重要的。论说文要写什么，然后要怎么写呢？当然，英文作文的基本架构都是一样的，分为引言 introduction、文章主体 body， 还有结论 conclusion。那这一篇叙述论说文也是这样子来发展。
Right, that's our old hamburger structure again. You guys remember the hamburger structure, right? We talked about how we use the hamburger structure to organize our paragraphs, but it can actually be used to structure whole passages of writing, especially opinionated writing, such as the essay. As with paragraph structure, a good essay should have at least 3 elements. We need an introduction, that's a general truth or point that will guide our reader into the article. It should also lay out a thesis statement or the main subject we are going to address in our essay. Second comes the body, which is the meat of our burger. This is the part where you make the points that support your thesis statement. Just like a good burger has more than one filling ingredient, a good essay makes several points to support its argument. So don't stop at one point if possible. Lastly, we need the bottom half of our bun, the conclusion. That might sum up what we want to say, offer some opinion, or make suggestions or predictions for the future.
没错 ，Introduction 呢是文章的引言，说明书写此篇文章的动机。那全文的主旨句，也就是 thesis statement， 它会在第一段点出来。那在描述经验、合并论说的文章当中呢 ，Introduction 有以下几种方法来做开头。第一个，直接开始叙述这个现象、经验或事件。第二个，说明一般人对这样子的主题的看法。那以下呢2篇范文都在开头直接点出期望改善的问题，让读者能够直接了解问题的所在。
Yes, when we're writing introductions, it's often good to start with, a very broad sentence that everyone can relate to. So let's say you're writing an essay about cell phone addiction. Your introducing sentence could be something like, nowadays, cell phones play bigger roles in our lives. That's a very easy sentence to understand, and everybody will, have a good idea of what you're talking about. From there, you can go into more detail and tell them more about your thesis statement and make your argument. Now, while we're still talking about the introduction, I think that now is a great time for us to think about some phrases that we can give our readers to use in their essays. You can write your introduction in several ways. One strategy that works for this assignment is to begin by identifying a problem with Taiwan, something you do not like. Some good phrases for this include, a challenging problem Taiwan faces is... One primary problem with Taiwan is, primary there means, one of a big problem or a main problem that Taiwan faces. Another one is, this seems to be a common problem in Taiwan that, or lastly, an issue I've noticed about Taiwan is that. So all of these are just bringing up something that we don't like about Taiwan or something we think that Taiwan should change.
这些都是很棒的开头哦，所以呢，同学们可以把它们记下来。下次如果碰到台湾的主题，你就可以放上去；如果碰到不同的主题，你可以把台湾改掉，然后放上它指定的地方。那再来 introduction 之后，我们要说的是 body 的部分，它是文章的主体。那第一部分呢，通常是要描述这个主题。第一篇范例啊，在第一段就会描述呢台湾街道上的垃圾桶状况。第二部分就会去说明自己对这样主题的看法，可以分析这个主题造成的影响或是它的利弊。要注意哦，议论的方向必须是呼应第一段所描述的内容。这样才可以达到文章的一致性跟连贯性。那再来呢，我们会进到 conclusion， 它是文章的结论，要说明意义和你的体会。在叙述论说文当中啊，我们可以呢，第一步简单总结前面提到的重要性或好处，或是第二种对主题提出反省或检讨或是改善的方法。那我们2篇的范文呢，都是说明改善该问题后带来的好处，用来总结全文。
Good points there, Elsie. Before this class, I was looking around to see what different people say makes excellent essay conclusions, because this is something that I really struggle with personally. One source I found made a great observation. Really amazing conclusions can be compared to the end of any great speech. Like Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream or Barack Obama's 2008 presidential election victory speech. The end of truly great speeches make you feel something. They have the power to change your emotions or make you feel excited, surprised, hopeful, proud, worried, angry, or any other feeling. So when you get to the end of your passage, ask yourself, what do I want my reader to feel? Do you want them to feel angry or worried about a problem with Taiwan? Do you want them to feel hopeful that Taiwan can change? Do you want to encourage them to help Taiwan change? Whatever your objective is, the conclusion is your opportunity to engage with your reader's feelings. So seize that opportunity.
没错，所以呢，像我们最后的结论呢，要注重在能够激发读者的情感 make them feel something.
Exactly. When you make someone feel something, you don't just make a convincing argument, you make your writing memorable. And when it's memorable, you know that it's good writing. Nobody loves a book that they forgot 2 days later.
Right.
All right, that concludes the develop an approach part of this exercise. Let's move on to talking about how we will brainstorm our ideas. To recap, our assignment is to talk about something that we don't like about Taiwan or something that troubles us about Taiwan. But that doesn't mean that our essay should be just one long complaint. We want to suggest plausible solutions, give ideas of ways that Taiwan can change. Today's problem-solving chart can help us do just that. Take a look at the organizational chart on your magazines now. As you can see, you can first set the topic that you want to discuss and then write down the problems and solutions for this topic. Finally, you can turn the details listed in the organization chart into your outline.
这边呢，我们要将你觉得台湾要改善的项目列出来。像我们的图表上面呢，呈现的第一个要改善的项目是 trash cans， 垃圾桶的问题。第二个是 challenges for people with physical disabilities， 对不方便的人是会有一些困难的。那这两个问题呈现出来之后啊，再写下 problem and solution， 问题和问题的解决办法。最后再将表格当中的内容呢，变成你文章的架构。
Exactly. One thing I like about using a problem-solution chart for something like this is that it gives you a lot of flexibility to get down ideas and then challenge yourself to solve them. So let's say that you've got a blank problem and solution chart here. You can first go through all the problems you think there are with trash cans in Taiwan. So,
and you can write them down.
Exactly. So maybe there's not enough, for example. Or maybe they're overfilled, maybe, I'm not sure. What other problems do we have with trash cans in Taiwan?
I think not enough is the main problem.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And maybe people throw their like household garbage in a lot. Okay.
That's one of the problems too.
Exactly. That's something that people shouldn't do, but they do. That's a problem. Then once you've got these ideas down, you can start thinking about solutions, how could we make this better? And really here, earlier I said I wanted you to think of plausible solutions. Those are things that you imagine could really happen. So don't just say Superman is going to come and take everybody's garbage away, because that's not a plausible solution.
Yeah, we should be realistic.
Exactly. We need to be realistic. So you guys can quickly have a look now, maybe pause here and see if you can add any problems or any solutions to your chart. After that, rejoin us and we'll be talking about the outline of our essay. Right, can you guys guess what's coming up next? By now, we've got all our ideas laid out on the paper. We have problems, we have details, we have solutions, we have almost everything. We're just missing one thing. Paragraph structure. Okay. So we also need to think about how to organize our essay well if we want to be persuasive. A well laid out and easy to read passage is much more convincing than just randomly writing out your ideas in whatever order comes to mind. Let's take a closer look at our outline guide. So first we have our introduction. Taiwan is recognized as having one of the world's best recycling systems. So recycling, remember, is 回收. So, okay, it looks like the outline guide is beginning by making a broad introductory statement, like the example we gave with cell phones earlier. What I mean by this is the sentence, Taiwan is recognized as having one of the world's best recycling systems, is easy and everyone can understand it. What's more, it includes a statement of importance. Do you know about statements of importance, Elsie?
这代表的是强调事实的重要性吗？It works as a hook in the introduction?
It does, yes. It's sometimes journalists also call this the hook. That's because, when you think of fishing, the little thing that a fish bites on that helps you pull it out of the water is a hook. It catches the person's attention. So a statement of importance, or SOP, is a sentence or phrase that makes it clear to the reader why what you're talking about is noteworthy. SOPs are often phrases like the world's biggest, the world's best, the first ever. They get used frequently in news articles because journalists want to make you interested in what they've written. I will say one thing, though. When you start having to write longer, more serious essays, you should always include a source when you use a statement like the world's best recycling system, or you should expand on that and tell them what you mean. If you don't, the reader might not believe your article. They might think you're exaggerating, and your writing won't look as strong. For your English exams in Taiwan, however, I don't think you need to worry about this because we're testing your ability to write in English, not your ability to make an argument.
没错，那我们在说的是呢，这个 SOP 或者是 hook 的重要性，在 introduction 在引言当中开头当中就要把它提出来，吸引读者的注意。那这边呢，我们提供的 topic sentence 1主题句第一句是 I'm quite proud of this fact, but I feel we can do better.我对这个事实是很骄傲的，可是我觉得我们可以做得更好。然后再提出来 A, There's never a trash can around when you need it or it's full. B, I have to carry garbage around with me. 所以他先说了，我虽然很骄傲，但是我觉得可以改进。再提出问题 A and B are the problems.
Great. So the first paragraph clearly lays out the problems that people face. The second one, meanwhile, talks about the solutions. So now you can see where our brainstorming structure is coming into this. Topic sentence 2 is the solution is simple. There should be more trash cans on the streets. It would save people from carrying garbage around. That's our first follow-up sentence. The next one is, it would relieve the problem of existing cans being overfilled. And lastly, governments might have to hire more sanitation workers. One thing I really like about this paragraph is that last sentence. Governments might have to hire more sanitation workers. This is a good example of the pros and cons strategy I talked about earlier. The example outline is acknowledging some points or some problems that might arise with trying to implement their solution. Pointing out other points of view or acknowledging counterpoints to your argument doesn't make your writing weaker, quite the opposite. It makes it much stronger because it shows you have really considered everything in researching and writing your essay. You know what? That sentence isn't my favorite bit. This is my favorite bit. Our
Which
concluding sentence.
结论句
Hiring more workers can be a benefit as it turns trash into jobs. The concluding sentence shows that the writer has even thought of a counterpoint to their counterpoint. They've thought of everything. They've solved everything. So this is a really convincing piece of writing.
没错，他提出问题之后，提出了解决办法，最后还说 Hiring more workers can be a benefit. 你如果雇佣更多的清洁的员工，那会是个好处，因为可以把这些垃圾变成工作。
Exactly. All right, let's take a quick break here and then we will read through our basic and advanced samples. Okay, welcome back. Let's read through the sample and then go through some writing tips for each passage. Basic sample. Taiwan is widely recognized as having one of the world's best garbage and recycling systems. I'm quite proud of this fact, but there are some ways I feel we can do better. For example, there's never a trash can around in public when you need it, or when you see one. It's full. I have to carry around a small plastic bag in my pocket for holding my used tissues or snack wrappers. To be honest, that's pretty disgusting. Fortunately, I think the solution is simple. City governments should put more trash and recycling cans on the streets. It would save people like me from carrying garbage around. It would also relieve the current problem of existing cans being overfilled. Governments might have to hire more sanitation workers to monitor and empty the additional trash and recycling cans, which will cost money. However, this can still be seen as a benefit, as it turns trash into jobs. Okay, I really like how this essay started out. Even though the assignment was to think of a problem with Taiwan and how you would fix it, it doesn't sound like the writer is complaining. Instead, they start strong by saying that Taiwan is a leader in recycling. It has one of the best recycling systems in the world. But that the system here could be improved. Knowing how to sell yourself like this is a great skill to have for situations like job interviews. Often, when you're interviewing for a job, you might be asked to name a personal weakness. If you can instead turn that question into a positive about yourself, then you have a much better chance of getting hired.
Yes, it's important to know how to turn your weakness into your strength. 知道怎么把你的缺点变成优点，是一项很重要的在写作上面的技能。那这边呢，范文是先夸奖台湾，说优点，再提到需改进的地方，也是一个很好的方式。那再来呢，我们还看到I'm quite proud of this fact, but 好，这之前有提到，这是第一小段的结论。他先说我很骄傲，但是有可以改进的地方。然后最后他也说了 To be honest, that's pretty disgusting. To be honest 代表的是老实说。那他讲了这个片语之后呢，可以继续抓着读者的注意力。然后第二段呢，再用 fortunately 幸运的是来带出解决办法。
Fortunately is a great one that you can use not just for essay writing, but for basically any kind of formal writing, emails, any kind of communication. Okay, so there were a couple of phrases that I also really liked. Save someone from something is a really good one. So when you save someone from something, you help them avoid having to do it. Save in this context, I think, is a little bit like 救 in Chinese. So, you can... when you're struggling with some work, you can ask somebody to save you, to help you. In this case, it also has a positive meaning, as in basically getting somebody to do something so that you won't be troubled with doing that thing. So, for example, when Susie swept the floor, she saved me from spending so much time cleaning up. Because Susie swept the floor, I didn't have so much work to do, so I was saved some time. Save typically means to rescue someone, and other phrases using save are a bit different. When you save someone from themselves, for example, you stop them from ruining their own lives.
To save somebody from something, 或者是 to save somebody from doing something, 代表的是将某人远离某事。那再来呢，我们在这个 basic sample 里面还看到了一个用法是动词 relieve the current problem, 代表的是减轻现在的问题。
There's also this other word, sanitation, which I think we should take a look at. Sanitation is a professional word for cleaning, but it's normally the kind of cleaning that is either done on the street or in other big public works. Sanitation workers collect garbage, treat sewage, and do other similar jobs to keep the community clean. In general, words with the prefix sanit, S-A-N-I-T, have to do with cleanliness and hygiene. A sanitary way of doing things, for example, is a very clean and hygienic way of doing things. When you sanitize a space, meanwhile, you make it extremely clean and kill all the germs in that space. During COVID-19, workers have gone to a lot of care to sanitize places like hospitals, airports, and other areas where the virus gets around easily.
接下来呢，我们还看到一个形容词是 additional， 它代表的是多出来的、增加的，所以我们这边用 the additional trash 来形容多出来的、增加的垃圾。那最后呢 basic sample 再用 however 带出虽然花费会增加，但是可以将地上的垃圾变成工作机会。
All right, let's take a look now at the advanced sample. Advanced sample. Taiwan is a great place to live, but it certainly isn't perfect. In fact, for people with physical disabilities, it can be downright challenging to get around. I use a wheelchair, so many of the things that walking people can easily overcome are significant barriers to me. One example is shops. Many storefronts have a step up to get inside, or are even on upper floors in buildings without elevators. Even those I can enter usually have aisles too narrow to squeeze my chair into. This means most indoor spaces are inaccessible for me. Neither is the situation any better outside, as sidewalks are crowded with scooters or other obstacles, making them impossible to navigate in a chair. I often am relegated to using the street, which is extremely dangerous. I think it's impractical to ask individual companies to make their stores more accessible, or to try and move sidewalk obstacles one by one. Therefore, this is an area where implementing large-scale change is necessary. If the government can pass and enforce laws requiring greater accessibility in private businesses and on public sidewalks, it would make life easier, not just for people in wheelchairs, but for just about everyone else too. This is one change that could benefit Taiwan on the whole, so it's one I fully support. All right, we're a little bit short on time, so let's just look at a couple of words from this passage, and then it'll be time to say goodbye. Okay, so there was the phrase, the word downright, which I saw, which was quite interesting. Downright is one word, down as in up and down, and right as in right and left, downright. We use that word to emphasize that something is completely bad or untrue. So that was downright wrong of you, or it's downright rude to talk to me in that way. I've got an example sentence here. I thought your behavior at the dinner party tonight was downright rude. Jonathan will probably never invite us back again. So basically, downright there means very, or really, really.
Downright 可以当副词或形容词用，代表十足的、彻头彻尾的。所以呢，在例句当中 ，downright 去形容了、去修饰了 rude 这个字，就是非常的没有礼貌。
Exactly. We also saw accessible, and we touched on this, but let's go over it again because I think it's one of the most important words in this passage. When something is accessible, it's easy for people to get to or to use. You'll sometimes see businesses advertise themselves as wheelchair accessible. That means it's easy for people in wheelchairs to get inside and move around the businesses. Meanwhile, if that business's information is accessible on Google Maps, it means that you can find out all about that business on that platform. Lastly, we can also use accessible to mean that something is easy or comfortable to use. For example, I found the class in this language school to be very accessible, so I made quick progress.
Accessible 这个形容词呢，代表的是可简单取得的、可轻松使用的。What about its opposite word?
Oh, inaccessible. That's a very good one to point out. You know, we normally put un in front of adjectives.
So here,
we say inaccessible.
in 放在字首就可以了。
Exactly. So if something is inaccessible to wheelchair users, then it might have a lot of steps. It might be very narrow, difficult, or impossible for people in wheelchairs to use. All right. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for today's episode. I think that you guys have more than enough information now to go out and write your version of this essay. So maybe try to use some of the vocab that we talked about. Definitely try to use the brainstorming and outline tools we gave you. And I'm sorry that we won't get to read your essays ourselves. All right, so it's time for us to say goodbye. I'm Seb.
I'm Elsie.
And we'll see you again soon.
Bye.
Bye.